Hi, I'm Elliot, a writer, and I'm typing out The Great Gatsby. Why? Because that was something Hunter S Thompson did because he wanted to see what it would be like to write a masterpiece. Now that I have some time on my hands, I figured it would be a good opportunity to try it myself. So, join me every Saturday until I finish the whole novel. Here we are, another week. It's good to see you. Very good to see you. It's hard to believe that I'm still doing this, but I am. I'm still typing out The Great Gatsby. I'm Elliot. This is The Great Gatsby, and here we are. 19 weeks. 19 weeks. Crazy that it's been so long. 19. What can you do in 19 weeks? A lot of stuff. What have I done in 19 weeks? I don't know. I really don't. Got my shark shirt from Old Navy here. Summer days are happening. It's getting quite warm here. It's actually not super hot right now. It's kind of overcast, which is kind of lucky because I have my doors and windows closed because it is very loud outside. So I'm actually very happy that it's not super hot right now because it's been super hot the past few days, which is what I like. I'm not complaining. It's just when I'm doing this, it gets really stuffy in here. It's never perfect. It's just never perfect. Everything I do, there's always something wrong. There's always something to complain about. But let's be positive today. Let's be positive. This is going to be great. You're in for a treat. This is going to be a really good episode with a lot of informative insights, engaging conversations, a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff to be had. Typing out The Great Gatsby. And this week went by pretty quickly. For me, not too much to update you on, except last week I mentioned that hockey was returning and how excited I was for that. It has returned, and this is as happy as I'll be for a while. I mean, it's frustrating also because I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan, and I'm as excited as I am, I'm also ready to be upset. So there's that. Still working on all the stuff I'm doing. Trying to stay alive as best I can and not harm anybody, really. I think that's the key. Not harm anybody. On that note, let's get started. There's a lot of stuff to get through today, and today we're wrapping up chapter 5, I believe. This is chapter 5. It's hard to remember when you're doing this bit by bit. Chapter 5, yes. So today we're going to talk about chapters. What are chapters? Do we need chapters? I've read books without chapters, novels, prose without chapters, long-form stories without chapters before. So, no, you don't necessarily need chapters, but chapters are more for the readers. It's actually nice for them to have, especially if you want them to take a break at a certain point. It's really good to have chapters because I have never read a book from beginning to end in one day. I'm a terribly slow reader. It just doesn't happen. So chapters are nice. They're a nice place to take a break. I also don't always stop at a chapter. I kind of just keep going as well. It's a logical break, but sometimes I'm just I'm gonna just read a bit more. And then I get tired halfway through the next chapter. So they're useful in that sense, but I think it's more useful, not so much for yes, the readers like enjoyment, but it's also good for referencing where in your story you are. Like, say, oh, I need to, like, when was I talking about the character in the tavern or something? It's like, oh yeah, chapter two, I'm there. It's like, so you could reference that part into the setting, or you could reference like a certain character development or a certain plot point. You could be like, okay, that happened in chapter 4. So as a writer, it's good to have that as well, and also for the reader to reference later on, if they, especially when they want to have a conversation about your book with someone else. It's good for them to like, oh yeah, remember in chapter 3 when Harry finds out that he's a wizard or something like that. So, I mean, life happens in chapters too, right? So you can think about it that way. It's like when you're telling a story about your own personal life, you could be like, oh yeah, I remember that chapter in my life where I was in high school, or that chapter in my life where I was working at the Starbucks. You could sort of, segment your life in that logical way, which is kind of helpful in telling stories. So that's the point of chapters. I mean, yeah. So that's the opening thoughts on chapters. We'll talk more about it as we go. So what we're looking for, if you remember from the beginning of this chapter, it's pretty much about Gatsby and Daisy meeting again, and Nick kind of facilitating that whole interaction. It begins with Nick talking to Gatsby, and it's like, hey, I'm inviting her over for tea. You should be here. This is what you want, right? And then Gatsby just being weird about it. Eventually, last episode or whatever, they finally meet. They have a conversation. Gatsby invites them over to see his big house, and she ends up crying because his shirts are so beautiful. And that's where we left off, and let's continue. Nope. Alrighty, off to a bad start. The green light. Is it a metaphor? Probably. feel like my font's a little bigger. I must have changed it during the course of the week. It looks bigger to me, which is probably easier for all you guys to read. I guess I have some notes here about chapters. I wasn't able to memorize them all. So as we kind of wrap up this chapter here, we're looking for what is typically known to be a good place to end a chapter, and for the sake of the reader, and that tends to be when there's a scene change, like a location change, a time change, or when there's some sort of development with the characters. Those seem to be a logical place to cut a scene. Or another way you could sort of approach ending a chapter is right before a climactic moment, such as when something is about to be discovered, or a certain dramatic moment is happening in the scene. Because what a chapter needs to do, in addition to separating the story into different chunks, is also to kind of keep the momentum going. You hear about like, oh, it was a page turner. You want to leave it so the audience can, comfortably stop right there and resume afterward over a period of however long they want to take a break from your book. But you also want to leave it like a really good television show. You want them to like come back and watch the next episode. You don't want them to just like, I'm just gonna put this down here and I'm just gonna go do something else, and they never come back. No, you want them to look forward to the next chapter. You want them to have something to come back to and really get them excited. So cutting a chapter right before something dramatic happens, or a climactic moment, or some sort of event, a significant event, tends to be a good place to kind of keep that momentum going. That's a little fun tip for writing chapters, ending chapters. So we're gonna see if this chapter kind of does that when we end it, which is soon, as I try to get to it. Mr. Dan Cody. I'm not spelling great today. Just reading it. Weird. Taken apparently when All right. Pompadour. Oops. Okay. Here's clippings about her. All right, so they're just looking at stuff in Gatsby's house. real thrilling here. Kind of pacing it, I think, before something dramatic happens. I hope. I like that previously they ended it with her crying, and now they're just sort of continuing, just like wandering around. Oops. See, talking about chapters, such a broad topic, while we're in the midst of trying to get to the end, I don't know, it makes for a lot of good conversation in between to observe, so kind of just soak in what is happening right now. What is it? Previously we talked about subtext and like kind of try to recognize what are some of the subtext that's happening at this moment. I like that Nick is just trying to get out of here. Jeez, just one thing after the next. They're trying so hard to be entertained. Oh, jeez. Okay. I feel like I'm definitely gonna leave some typos today in here. I also found out earlier this week that The Great Gatsby goes into public domain. Jeez. Sorry. Interrupted me. I found out that The Great Gatsby actually goes into public domain next year. So expect more Great Gatsby type content in the future. I actually don't know if I'm allowed to do this, like sort of typing out a whole novel and putting it on the internet like this. I think there's enough, artistic change happening, the fair use, that I could get away with this, I think. I'll get some lawyers, don't worry. Oof. That I spell politely. I'm so tired already. I'm tired already. 19 weeks. It has been a long time. Imagine, I like to think about back in the day when people didn't have word processors and they were actually like typing on a piece of paper. How challenging would that be? I couldn't even comprehend how challenging that would be to actually have to like print things out or go back. Like a typewriter, it's very romantic. It's like a very nice romantic idea to be like, I wish I had a typewriter, and I'll like type on a typewriter and be a total hipster about it. But you're like, oh man, that must be so annoying. Because at some point you just want to get it done, right? Like, it's like the nostalgic novel idea of using a typewriter is kind of, I guess it can't be nostalgic and novel at the same time. But you know what I'm saying? Like the funness of it would you would lose that excitement very quickly, I'm sure. After a few hours, maybe even less. I don't know. I've never really typed out a full thing on a typewriter before. I think it would be fun for a little bit. Maybe I could type out one page, but it's way too much trouble. I actually looked into it a few years ago, like 5 years ago, and it's just expensive too. It's really expensive. If you guys have a typewriter, and if you guys use a typewriter, please let me know what that's like. If you've written anything long with it, how did that editing process go? I'm currently writing my first draft on pen and paper, and I find that it's nice because I can't really go back and edit what I've written. I kind of just have to keep moving forward. I find that really nice to not to avoid self-editing. But a typewriter, I still prefer. I think a computer's better. That's my realization. That's my conclusion. That a computer is better than a typewriter. They have these apps where it mimics the typewriting sounds, like tick, 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 the different keys. I don't know. That's like when there's like vegetarian versions of really that's like a Beyond Meat burger. It's like just stop trying to make it look like. just eat just eat salad if you're gonna do this. Stop trying to make our food weird. I didn't mean to offend anybody. If you're a vegetarian and if you like Beyond Meat Burger, that is totally fine. What I'm saying is that you are living a lie. I have no idea where I am. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. So we're discovering here that Gatsby doesn't only call Nick Old Sport, he kind of calls everybody Old Sport. And now this guy, this poor guy, who just wanted a nap, he's being pressured to entertain people. Best part, turning the page. Progress. We're seeing progress. This is a very slow-paced section. I hope it ends with a really thrilling cliffhanger that leaves me wanting more, because I'm kind of ready for all three of these people to just go home. Oh, poor guy. I want to follow this guy's story for a bit. Sounds like me. This is really relatable. Clip Springer. There should be... A few weeks ago, I was talking about the prequel to The Great Gatsby. It's called Nick. Yeah, just search it up. Search Great Gatsby prequel Nick on Google. You should be able to find it. Hope there's one for this guy. Clip Springer. What's his story? I'm gonna write some fan fiction about him. Gatsby's just being mean to him. It's not making me like Gatsby too much at the moment. Oh no, this formatting change. Might seem like I'm complaining, but I'm not. This is not complaining. You haven't seen complaining yet. You should see me talking to customer service people. Now that's complaining. This is just me rambling, moving my mouth, making sounds, trying to multitask while doing this. It's actually really hard. What I'm doing right now, it's an incredible feat. Nothing is being absorbed. Oh gosh. I probably should pay attention. Let me pay attention for a bit. What's happening. Outside, the wind was loud, and there was a faint flow of thunder along the sound. All the lights were going on in West Egg now. The electric trains, men carrying, were plunged home through the rain from New York. It was the hour of a profound human change, and excitement was generating on the air. Okay. So, oh, that must be fun. Oh boy. What's happening here? This formatting is so weird. It's like, it looks like this. I don't know, you definitely can't see that. Don't worry about it. It's a good try, good try. That's funny. I wonder if Fitzgerald wrote this part himself. I always want to use song lyrics in my stories, but I do not want to pay for the rights. That's present happiness. Oh. Where am I? Oh. All right, so we sort of just analyzing Gatsby in this moment. Just watching him. Whew. And that is how the chapter ends. Well, what do you think? Is this... It seems like an apt conclusion to what has gone on in this chapter. Definitely some development happening from beginning to end. It could almost stand alone as a short story when you think about it, because there's a type of arc that happens at the beginning. Gatsby was really nervous. He wasn't sure if he really wanted to interact with Daisy, and at the end, he's so happy that he's forgotten about his friend Nick, and that is the kind of arc that happened. Kind of leaves you wondering what is going to happen more. Is Daisy going to leave Tom for Gatsby? Is Gatsby going to pursue her even more, or is he going to get crazier and crazier? I don't know. Stay tuned, find out, right? So overall, it's a fine way to end it, I think. Is it a cliffhanger? Not necessarily. No one really dies or anything. Like, it's not it's a very appropriate place to end it. Like I said, like, should the story just kind of end there? It feels fine, but when you think about the hero's journey and you think about Gatsby, this is when things are kind of going well, and then I bet like things are gonna go to shit in the next chapter, and then they need to redeem himself or something like that. He needs to redeem himself. Someone needs to do something, and but yeah, that is chapter 5, everybody. That is chapter 5. I guess while we're here, kind of in break mode, let's talk about the Fitzgerald fun fact for today. Oh yeah, this is the part of the show where I share with you a researched fun fact about Fitzgerald or the novel The Great Gatsby. Okay, here we go. Fitzgerald got $16,666. Sorry, he got $16,666 for the movie rights for The Great Gatsby. Sorry, I wrote this bad. It was a silent film, and it was released in 1926, and it sucked. So I'm not sure what the conversion for like $16,000 is back in the 20s to now, but I think that's a lot of money. So he made some money off of The Great Gatsby. It wasn't like a raging success. The movie was very bad. It sucks. Zelda Fitzgerald claims that her and Scotty, they left during the viewing of it. They didn't like it. It was a bad movie, a bad silent film, but Gatsby made some money from it. Fun fact. Fun fact. I need some like music to cue this up. I need a higher production value. That's what I want. Like graphics or something. Like fun fact. Come in. I have none of that. This is not that type of the show. One thing I always forget is whether I use like the numbers for chapters or like the spelling of it. It doesn't matter. We're not going to go into that. If you even know what I'm talking about, which you probably don't. Part of me wanted to leave it off here, but we got some time left in this episode, so we might as well keep going. Like I mentioned before, even when I'm reading, I don't usually stop at the end of a chapter. I sometimes feel like, I still feel like reading. Let's read until I'm tired. And reading till I'm tired is kind of how I always approach reading. Give it as much as you got. Let's see how this chapter starts. You know, how one chapter goes in the other. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah, let's do that. Why not? I feel like a teacher who finished teaching too fast. It's like, oh yeah, what do you guys want to learn? I finished my whole curriculum here. So, although it isn't like a scene change or a setting change necessarily, it's definitely like a time change. I guess time is setting as well. And it's like we're clearly in a different situation now. And that whole thing with Daisy, that's chapter 5. Chapter 5 contained all of that. And now we're moving into another one. So if you want to reference like, oh, when did Gatsby meet up with Daisy? You could just go look at chapter 5. I think that is the main point of a chapter. When chapter starts being like blended into different like setting and time, it gets kind of confusing. Yeah, but there's really no wrong way to do it. I've seen like chapters that are 1 sentences long. I don't know the point of that. I think at that point you're just trying to be like funny or clever. I like that he's using the adverb politely a lot, because we kind of get the impression that these characters are jerks. So when they're actually trying to be polite, it's good to notice. It's good to understand how your reader is supposed to perceive these characters. That way you could find the right adjective whenever they're kind of not acting in the way that the reader might naturally assume they would. You could kind of push them a little bit back this way. It's like, all right. I think that's when adverbs specifically are most useful. Sorry. This is a good time to do that typing part of the show that I do, where I try to see how much I could type in 1 minute. This is an ongoing thing that I'm doing. It's a fun opportunity for me to test my typing speed. My goal that I'm trying to hit is like 80 words, 85 words. I feel like I got 80 words. I haven't gotten there for a long time. Maybe today. My personal record, I raised the bar too high, I think is what happened. Too high too quickly. I think I'm averaging around like somewhere around 50, 60, which is very respectable, I would say. But let's try to break that. Let's try to get anywhere over 60 today would be good. All right. No. Deep breaths. Okay. Feel free to do this with me if you want. Grab whatever text you have and let's do this. All right. I'll give you a moment. Grab whatever you have, whatever book you have lying around. Do this with me. I'll time it. I'll say 1, 2, 3, go. All right. You got something? 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, jeez. Oh, there you go. Hands up. Time's up. Well, that wasn't great. I don't think I came close. That was full of mistakes. I missed a word, so we'll minus 1 word there for sure. So let's see how we did. Let's see how I did. You might have done better. 61 minus 1, 60. So that was not so bad. That was kind of what I was hoping for. It's kind of knowing that I could have done better under the right circumstances, under the consistency is key. To do it a little bit every time. Eventually you'll get better. And yeah. So now this reporter is trying to talk to Gatsby because he's so famous now. James Gatz. So, plot is thickening. I think one thing that's kind of interesting about like a chapter change, especially after, after like a big moment, because the story from the beginning to the end of the previous chapter was, okay, who's Gatsby and what's his relationship with Daisy? And now we figure that out. It's time for another question to be posed. It's like, what will happen? Previously, it's like, what will happen once Gatsby sees Daisy, right? That's the question leading up to the previous chapter. Now this chapter is going to ask us a different question. And so when you start a chapter, it's nice to have that question that at the end of this chapter, the reader will know this answer. And each chapter should, in a way, pose like a very specific question that it needs to reveal in some way, or lead to, or direct to. It's like as soon as one problem ends, another problem needs to start and then be resolved at some point in the future. There needs to be this payoff that happens, and once it's paid off and the story isn't over, there needs to be another one. Otherwise, like we mentioned before, it loses that momentum. That's why it's kind of nice to end it on like a cliffhanger-y thing, so that the beginning of the next chapter is the actual answer, and then it starts a new problem. That kind of makes sense, right? I can't really I say things and then I don't get any like feedback from anybody here currently with me sitting here. So in my mind, I'm just like, you sound like a crazy person. You sound crazy right now. I'm actually glad I didn't stop right at the end of the chapter, and that we get to look at the beginning of the next one, because it kind of, you can see how the two, how it's different from each other. And I think that's an interesting thing to look at, especially when we're writing, especially throughout this whole typing process. Because if I ended the episode here with just finishing that chapter, we don't really get that thread of thought going into the next. Yeah, end of a chapter, how to end a chapter and start a chapter. Maybe that'll be the title of this video. So I actually have a hard time thinking of these titles. Like harder than I want it to be. Like I spent maybe 5 minutes thinking about it. I probably should spend more time. But it's hard. It's hard enough. I don't do as much research as I should. I don't do the SEO thing. I try not to treat it too much like a job. Okay, I'm like sweating. It's really hot. So I'm gonna wrap this up soon. Whew. That seems like a good place to stop. So we're gonna end with this reporter talking to Gatsby about something to do with this James Gatz person. Yeah, I don't I don't fully understand what's happening at the moment, but This just what I'm talking about. It's like the beginning of a new problem that Gatsby and our friend Nick will have to deal with, and that's something to think about when you're working within the structure of different chapters, where to break things, where to keep things going, where to not break things, where to build things. Okay. Wow. Week 19. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? It has been a journey, and still, I think we're over halfway done. I wonder if we're gonna make it to episode 40. None of this is planned. I don't have like a 40 episode contract with HBO or anything. I don't know when this will end. It might never end. It might just keep going forever. I hope not. It's good to see that. It's good to be like halfway done. I think that's a huge marker. Chapter 6. How many chapters in this thing? I know there's not many. I think there's only like 9 or something. So if it's chapter 6, there's only 9 chapters. There's only 3 more chapters left. I can't believe it. I guess if you count chapter 6, it's 4 more chapters. There's a lot to ponder, and I think it's important that we savor these moments that we're having together, moments right now, because they're not gonna last forever, baby. They're not gonna last forever. On my deathbed, please bring this up, that I once spent a whole summer, spring and summer to be honest. I'm gonna spend half a year doing this. My gosh. I'm gonna remember COVID and The Great Gatsby are forever gonna be connected. When I think of The Great Gatsby, I'm just gonna think of COVID-19. That one summer, it's like a relationship when you have with a book. It's like, I remember those days with me and Jay Gatsby spending these afternoons together. And you, the 3 of us, we're just like Nick, Daisy, and Gatsby here, really. It's just you, me, and Gatsby. Except you're kind of like Nick, and you're like, I need to get out of here. Can't you and just Gatsby spend time together? And me and Gatsby would. I guess I'm the Daisy of this relationship, which is fine. Which is totally fine. I'm gonna end it right here, right now. Thank you so much for joining me. Come back next week for episode 20. Maybe there'll be a nice surprise 20th episode. That's quite remarkable. 20 episodes? I don't even know if the Chevy Chase show had 20 episodes. Someone looked that up for me. So this is a great success. A lot of television shows don't make it to 20 episodes. Let's just say that. That's like a season and a half. So very proud of myself here for sticking it out since March. Remember March? March felt like yesterday, but it wasn't. I said I was gonna end it, but then I didn't. I just kept talking. Okay, I'm gonna end it now. Bye.